Once again, I want to share with you some thoughts that come from the beginnings of time, also comes from God's Word, the importance of the understanding of who we are. You know, most of us think we know who we are. We have our own thoughts, our own ideas of this. We look at our family and we think, okay, that's where I came from, or our nationality, number of things we identify as being the source of our life. But according to what God says, and that's where truth is, He says in Genesis 1, making the plans for creation, He said, let us create man in the image and likeness of God. Image and likeness of God. This was the beginning of man, the creation of man in the image and likeness of God. To fulfill that, God made man out of the dust of the earth, formed man. Then He breathed the breath of life into man. And so that life that we have came from Him. It was His life shared with us. And that form, which was made out of the dust, became a living soul, being. So here we have our beginnings. And the one thing that I would want us to comprehend and understand, because something that we've lost basically almost 100%, the image and likeness of God. This is who we are, the image and likeness of God. The enemy doesn't like this. He doesn't want us to know this. And he will do everything he can to get us to destroy that image. And he's doing a very good job of it today, because people are not happy with who they are. They want to change their very appearance, do everything they can to make themselves look what they think they want to be, rather than knowing who they are. The character, image and likeness of God, the character of God, the recognition. Do we have that recognition? Is this being seen in us? The splendor of the God life, the brilliance of it. It would mean that there should be no sadness, no sorrow, even though those things may come upon us and take away our joy for a moment. It shouldn't be something that controls us. It should be that which is being brought forth in beauty and the greatness of God. There's such an awesome provision of God in us. Even Christ, when He came for a purpose. I've shared that with you before. He came for a purpose because man lost his image. The enemy stole it. And what God said to us when He created us, or when He was creating us, is be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, and rule. In other words, we were to be the ones in control of the earth. We were to be the governors, if you please, the kings, the rulers of the earth. And the enemy stole it from us because we didn't understand it, perhaps. Don't want to judge Adam and Eve, that's not my job. But for some reason they listened to the enemy, and the enemy said, if only you would understand this, your eyes, if you eat of this fruit, your eyes would be open, and you would be like God. Already man was created in the image of God. Already. His eyes were not blinded. He did not see sin. He did not see these other things because they weren't in existence. And so therefore, the enemy deceived man. And when God created this image of Him, the plan from the very beginning, in Genesis it says, He looked at this, He evaluated it, and He said, that which He has done was very good. Not just good, but very good, perfect. So this is where our beginnings come in. True. The ruler of this world, at that time, who became the ruler of the world, deceived man, deceived Eve, and stole away from us that very image that God created us to be. Deceived us. Said, if you go ahead and do what you want, instead of obeying the commands of God, that you will then begin to have your eyes open and you will see. Yes, you will see. What will you see? You'll see good and evil. Before there was no evil to be seen. But now, here it is. You're going to see good and evil. The enemy said, God knows he doesn't want you to do this because he doesn't want you to be like him. He was already creating us in his image and likeness. This is the very essence of our life. The enemy deceived us. His purpose, John 10:10, he came to kill, to destroy, and to steal. And that's what he did. He stole the image of God in us, the very principle of God's life in us. He took it away so that no longer do we really see this or understand this. And the Old Testament says, my people perish for lack of knowledge, because we don't know who we were. We don't know what was lost. And now we don't understand that Christ came to restore it to us. New life. Hope that is ours. But it also tells us in John, it tells us that the ruler of this world has been judged. Now, God is a God of judgment. He's a God of honesty. He's fair. He could have destroyed the enemy. He could have. But God gave this earth to man. Cultivate it, keep it, and rule. This is what he said. That was man's responsibility. Man then gave this to the enemy. God had to respect that, or he did. He respected that because he gave that to man. Man chose to give it to the enemy. So there was now this struggle that was going on. But Christ then came, and his purpose of coming was to destroy the works of the enemy. Not to destroy the enemy, but to destroy his works. He destroyed all that control that was over man, and he gave man a new life, taking away the darkness, bringing man into new life. The old passed away, now the authority and the dominion has been given back to man. So now, in essence, it's really up to man to stand against what the enemy has done. In John 12, it says, the ruler of this world shall be cast out. How is he going to be cast out? The prophecies of the Old Testament said that Jesus said this to, or God said this to the enemy, that there would come a time when you as the enemy, this serpent, you will bite the heel of my people, but my people will crush your head. So here it now comes back to us, crushing the head of the serpent, standing firmly upon what God has given to us, not yielding to it, but resisting it. The ruler of this world shall be cast out. Jesus knew that the power that he was giving to man, the ability he was giving to man through what he was going through on the cross and in his resurrection, that man would now be able to stand up in greatness against all the deceptions of the enemy, not being deceived by him any longer. He would stand firm. It tells us in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, the God of this world, so is the enemy, has blinded the eyes of the unbelieving that they might not see the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. Here, again, notice this. We've been made in the image of God. And so the glory of Christ, who is the image of God, the glory of Christ, the gospel that he brings to us, brings a new life unto us, so that the very image of God can again be seen in order to bring about that restoration of that which God has given to us, given to man from the very beginning. The God of this world, which was the enemy, has blinded the minds of the unbelieving. The unbelieving. If they don't believe they will be deceived. We see this very rampant in the world today. We see things that are evil being made right by man, accepting them as right. Abortion, murder. We feel it's okay. It's okay. It's my body. I can do what I want. It's murder. It's taking a life and destroying it. This is God's very gift to man as children. And yet we are destroying that because we think that this is our right. We have the right to do that. We're blinded. We're blinded by the enemy, even to this day, because we haven't stood firm in the principles of God, in the laws, the commandments of God. Thou shalt not kill. Very clear, thou shalt not kill. And yet governments have okayed this in many countries. Doctors involved in this. People getting the abortion, not realizing that they are violating the very principles of God. Thou shalt not kill. So we stand now to realize who we are in the image of God. We have been made in the image of God. And in the image of God, we are to show forth the light of the gospel. It should be that coming forth from our lives. Instead of letting the world lead us, we let God be the source of the strength, wisdom, and understanding in our life so that we can stand firm in what God has given to us. In Ephesians it says, talking about man walking according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience. Now notice here, God identifies this through the writing of Paul to Ephesians, that when the enemy is ruling, disobedience takes place. And this is what we see so much of in today's world. The spirit of disobedience. Call it, here in the scripture it says sons of disobedience. Not the sons of God, but now the sons of disobedience. Doing what we want. Not happy with who we are. We violate the very principles that God has given to us in order to do what we want. Disobeying his rule, disobeying his laws, and finding ourselves to be disobedient. Walking according to the course of this world. Now, how many of us decide our life that we live now in this flesh according to the principles or the ways of the world, man? We listen to them very clearly rather than listening to God. And we wonder then, why do things go wrong for us? Why are there difficulties? Why are there pains? Why are there sorrows? Why are all these things? And I've heard people say, why does God allow this? It's man. It's the enemy that has brought this upon us. And we need to be aware of this. We're blaming God for things he didn't do. God is a God of love, compassion, mercy, grace. And yet we think he is the one who's doing all of these things to us. No, it's our rebellion. It's our disobedience to him. For every action, there is a reaction. And if we disobey him, and the reaction of our disobedience will bring about things that we don't really want in our life. But we've chosen. We walk according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air. The enemy is still around. I'd like to say that that was not true. He's still around because God is letting us now, because we chose this, be the one to make the choices. Do we want to follow God or do we want to follow the enemy? Choose you this day whom you will serve. We can either serve God or we can serve man. But we have been created in the image of God. This is the very essence of our life. This is our DNA. We've been given the things of God. In fact, in the New Testament, just recently in one of the Sunday messages, it tells us how that Christ prayed to the Father. He prayed to the Father that we would be created, that we'd be given the potentials and the abilities to be what he intends us to be, that his glory, the glory of God, would be given to us and be seen in us. This is the compassion of God, the love of Christ for us. He knew the sin of man. He was going to go to the cross to bear that sin for us, giving his life to set us free. And what he was praying for is that the glory of that redemption would be seen in us. The power of that would bring a new life to us, would bring us unity, would bring us wholeness and completeness. That's what he's promised to us. This was the prayer. This was the prayer of Christ to the Father. Now, if Christ is praying that for us, do you not think the Father is going to answer? Will he not give to us what has been asked by the Son? After all, the Son did all this work in our behalf. So he prays that we would be given new life, and that new life would be that which would bring forth the imagery of our beginnings, the image and likeness of God. This is who we are. The character, the recognition, the brilliance, the splendor of God. But you see, we've allowed the world system to integrate itself into our lives so that we are, in many cases, reflecting the world system rather than reflecting what God has given to us, what the principles of God might be. In Ephesians 6, it said our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places. This is where our battle is. Those things that are there to fight against us. Why? Because we've been created in the image and likeness of God. The enemy doesn't like that. He's tried to destroy that imagery. He doesn't want it seen. He can't literally destroy it as far as the gift of God is concerned, but he can destroy it by hiding it, by veiling it in our words, our ways of living, the things we do and the things we say. Then that which we have and who we are is hidden. It's in darkness because we have decided to listen to the enemy rather than to listen to God. What God has done is done. It cannot be changed. It cannot be changed. Now we can cloud it, we can reject it, we can refuse to let it be in our lives. But yet the very essence of it, the very roots of it, the very foundation of it is with us. What Christ did for all men. All men. He gave it to us. Now we have the choice. Will we accept what he has given? Will we accept it? Or will we reject it? It's up to us. It's our choice. But we have been given new life. And I go back to the very beginning, when God made the plan, let us create man in our image and likeness. Male and female, he created them. And he said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it and rule. Subdue it, what does subduing mean? It means to control any forces that would be against the plan of God. That's our responsibility. You subdue it. It was given to us from the very beginning of time. Before we were created, this was the plan, the will of God for us. He didn't want us to be in subjection to all these things. He wanted us to rule. He wanted us to be in charge, if you want to please talk that way. Walking in the principles of God and obeying his commandment brings us that ability to rule. This is what he gave to us. God saw this, he said it was very good. Very good. Not just good, but very good. This is what God is. It tells us in 1 John chapter 4, you are from God, little children, And if you have overcome, you are from God, little children. You are from God. You are from God. And notice this identifies our origins. And it also identifies the purpose or the very essence of who we are, because we came from God. If you came from God, what was the DNA that was there? Imagery and likeness of God. Male and female. Be fruitful, multiply. Look at that ability. Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, and rule. This is what God gave to us in the very beginning. You are from God, little children. You are from God. Something that we have to keep deeply entrenched within our hearts to understand. We are from God. 1 John chapter 3, it says the Son of God appeared for this purpose, that he might destroy the works of the devil. He destroys the works, the deception that he wants to bring upon us. The world has accepted his deceptions. We see all over the whole world the evil coming forth because man has lost sight of who he is. He's a creation of love, compassion. Being created in the image of God, God is love. So love is the very essence of our life. And if that is the essence of our life, how can we go about doing the things that we find ourselves doing today? We hate, we destroy, we kill, we steal, we put down people, rather than letting man be what God intended man to be. So we have a lot to learn. We've lost the very imagery, the sight of the very imagery, the understanding of who we are. We don't know who we are. And so therefore we're struggling to find ourselves. We go to the schools, we go to the universities, to the colleges, we're trying to find out who we are, what can we do, all this. And yet the very source of who we are, we don't go to them. We don't go to God to seek God's direction or to seek what God has done for us. What has he given to us? What is the power that is ours? What is the ability that is ours? Doesn't mean you should never study to bring forth more of what God has given to you, but it means we need to know the source of it and seek that direction which comes from him, because he is the source of all things in our life. The hope that is ours. The Son of God appeared for this purpose, to destroy the works of the devil, the deception that he's bringing upon us. This is what he came for. He delivered us so that we no longer had to be subjected. Now he brought new life to us. We have a choice. We can choose to reject, to refuse, to resist. In James 4 it says, submit to God, resist the devil. Resist and he will flee. Resist the devil. Remember, after Christ was baptized, he was taken to the wilderness to be tempted. 40 days of fasting, no water, no bread. When he finished 40 days, he would be hungry. So the enemy comes and says, why don't you turn this rock into bread so you can eat? Christ said, no, man shall not live by bread alone. He resisted. He was then taken to the temple and told, jump from the temple, the angels will protect you. He said, no, that thou shalt not tempt the Lord thy God. Then the enemy took him to the mountain and showed him the whole world and said, if you'll bow down and worship me, I'll give you all of this. And Christ's response was no. He would not. And what happened? It says the devil fled, left. Why? Because he resisted. He resisted. Sometimes we think that the resistance is so hard, so difficult, when in reality it isn't. It's a matter of us holding firm that which God has given to us. Submit to God. This is what God said. This is what Christ did in the wilderness. Thou shalt not man shall not live by bread alone, but by the words of God. Do we know the words of God? Do we know the instructions he's given to us? Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt honor thy mother and thy father. These things in the world today, we're violating them. Love your neighbor as yourself. We're violating all these things. These are the words of God. This is where strength comes from, when we listen to and obey them. In 1 Peter, it says, be of sober spirit. Be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. But resist him firm in your faith. The enemy is looking for someone who doesn't know the words of God. Someone who doesn't understand the principles of who they are. Doesn't understand where they came from. Doesn't understand that they are of God, little child. Doesn't understand that. And so he can deceive them. We see this rampant around the world. Government officials, judges, teachers, normal people being deceived. Why? Because we don't know the principles of God. We don't understand what he has done for us and what he's given to us. That's why I'm here. I don't pretend to be some great prophet. But I just want you to know who you are. I want you to know God created you with great ability, with potential. He created you with life. He created you with love. This is the very foundation of your life, the very essence of who you are. This is why we find ourselves with so much sickness and disease, because we're fighting against the things that are ours. We're coming against them, fighting them. What God has given to us is vital for our understanding. It's vital for our new life, that we can be what God intends us to be. Resist the enemy, firm in your faith. No, this is what God does. This is what God has given to me. This is mine because I'm a child of God. I am of God. You can't do this to me. I tell sometimes in my homilies, when the devil knocks on your door with sickness or disease or poverty or tragedy, whatever, don't answer the door. If you answer the door, tell him wrong address. Don't accept it. Don't accept it. But too many times we accept. We accept the slightest little pain. Oh, I'm going to die. Gotta go to the hospital. Gotta go to the doctor. Resist. The poverty knocks on your door. Resist. God said he would supply. He will. That's our hope. It's in him. And so I want you to understand who you are. You are of God. You are of God. And his love, his compassion is yours. And so let that be a part of your life this week. Meditate on it. Let the scriptures speak to you. Let God speak to you. And let him be the source of your life. And until next week, be alive in him. Resist the devil. Resist the devil and walk with Christ. Amen.